Hello and welcome to the year we started a podcast. It's a podcast born phoenix-like from the ashes of last year's podcast. I am your co-host, Jeff.
And I'm your other co-host, Nick.
And this is our podcast. We're a couple of friends that are half a continent apart that would like to come together and talk about some of the things that are fun and interesting to us and less on the rest. And man, Nick, I'll tell you what, these last 2 weeks, I feel like I'm losing my mind a little bit. Like I've said that intro. I mean, let's just say I hit it in, on the first try every single time, 30 some odd times. And I feel like I'm getting worse at remembering exactly how it goes. I think might be.
That's impressive. You'd think that you'd build the habit, right?
You would. Well, that's the thing. Is at the beginning I would read it, like I would read it every time, and then I knew it. But then I don't know. I feel like a week is just long enough that now I like stumble agree. Almost.
I'll tell you that because I'm a scripted baby, I do read it every time. I read my 3 lines every time.
It's okay. I will say I think I know what the problem is though. Is some of my favorite intros are the ones where I interrupt the typical cadence of how things go because I think it's funny. So I like as I'm reading it, it's like I'm fighting against, do I make this be one of the weird ones or do I make it be a normal one? And you
gotta be natural, Jeff. This is just life. You gotta be natural with the
natural with the funnies. Well, Nick, I need to talk to you about voicemail.
Okay.
This is our intro this week. We need to talk about voicemail. Nick, I need to know what you think about voicemail. I have opinions. Go.
Jeff, you always ask me for opinions on the most benign things. I have little opinion on voicemails. Most of the voicemails I get now are robocalls, and I don't like leaving voicemails. I feel awkward when I leave them. Because you're kind of just talking to yourself.
You are certainly talking to yourself. Also, talking about robocalls could definitely be like an entire rant all in and of itself.
Oh, I know.
How is it 2021 that we can't figure out how to stop people from spamming me with nothing?
I know. It's bad. It's really, really bad.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about voicemails, Nick. So,
yeah.
Do you keep up on your voicemail? Like if somebody leaves you a message? Okay.
Yeah, I listen to it ASAP and then delete it because it stresses me out to see a list of them. So
okay. So it stresses you out to see a list of them. Nick, how many unread messages do you have in your texting app of choice?
Right now is 0.
Okay, I have. Do you want to take? I know I do this game all the time.
Like 50? Do you have like 50?
Nick, okay, we'll edit this out. I have to send you a picture and just hear your reaction from seeing it.
I'm like getting anxiety. I will say while we're doing this part, the exception to this rule for me where I don't get anxious is my email. I just gave up on my email when I was like 14. It's just like it's covered in spam. It's covered.
It's just impossible.
Jen looks at it and she's like, "What do you mean 2,000 messages?" And you're like, "Don't worry about it. Who cares?"
Katie clears her email as diligently as anybody I've ever seen in my life. I do not know how you can do that.
Yeah, I've like logged into Jen's email and there will be like 2 messages and they're both like archived starred things because they're like, "Oh, I need that tracking number for something." And I'm like, what? How? All
right, Nick, have you gotten my text?
That's 797, Jeff. That's a big number, Jeff. My number is uncomfortable for me, Jeff. Also, I want to say, I guess 500. I was within like a margin. I thought you guessed.
Man, we're living like a parallel universe because I swear you said a much lower number. You said like
I said 50. I said 50. Yeah. I am not even remotely close to within margin of error. Never mind. What the heck? Jeff, that number's too high.
It is. But actually, there's some non-funny reasons why that is. I just get lots of texts for work things that if I had to clear all of them, it would be annoying. But what it has caused me to do is kind of treat my email and my text the same way. Of like, I'll see things, but I'm not going to bother like marking it as read or like clicking into it or whatever.
My God.
I've given, in the same way that you've given up on email, I've given up on text.
How do you live your life, Jeff?
Well, ask anybody. I am an exceptionally terrible texter. So yeah, there you go.
Oh my God.
That's okay. Well, we didn't talk about voicemail. Similarly,
talk to me about
similarly, I've given up, but to a much greater extent, for all intents and purposes. Voicemail for me might as well not even exist. If you ever call me and leave me a voicemail, you are talking to yourself in the moment, but you are talking to yourself permanently. I don't even know the last time I've checked a voicemail. Like it's been forever. Like if you don't get a hold of me on a phone call, you send me a text. That is, like, I don't understand. Like it's so hard. Like you have to like sit there and listen to the entire 1 minute of the person rambling awkwardly into the phone. Like, why are we even doing this anymore? Like I understood when like you had to, but like I don't know, it feels like a carryover of a very, very archaic way of leaving a message. And there are much, much better, less weird ways to do it. I don't know.
I guess
I'm not opposed to like, I'm not crazy. Like I do know that like some things are so much easier just to talk through, but like,
yes.
Otherwise, like you're taking the worst of both worlds. Like you're having to, in the moment, try to describe whatever it is that you're trying to say. And also now I, on the other end, have to like listen and where I could read what you would have said in like 3 seconds. I don't know.
Okay. Let me put one thing out there for you. This without like I'm not criticizing you, but your consistent job life is showing here because like when you're applying for a job and you don't know who's calling you and they don't have your like
okay, well
that's you know
fair.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
okay,
I definitely have a little bit of a
yeah.
holdover for that. Like and not just a job, but if it's somebody you don't really know for like an appointment or if you're applying for something or whatever the hell, like if they don't have your number, then I know that like the easy answer is to just email, hey, I want to follow up on this appointment thing that you need. But a lot of times it would come through or it comes through easiest as a voicemail, right?
Yeah. Okay. So we don't normally just choose who's right, but you're right in this sense. So you are actually correct. And because now that I'm thinking about it, there are times where I do check a voicemail if I do have like a doctor's appointment or something like something like that, where I missed the call, but they left the message. But I will say I haven't listened to a voicemail because I assume Android has some similar thing where they do the voice to text. And whoever thought to do that for those times where you do need to pay attention to voicemails, it is a godsend. Like I am so grateful that I don't have to just sit there for a minute and listen to people talk when in reality, like reading and I would love to know like the actual math on it, but reading has to be like orders of magnitude faster than like listening to somebody talk.
Can I say that this is like weird serendipitous timing? Because Jen literally this morning sent me a transcript that she got from me when I pocket dialed her while I was like out with my dad and my brother, and she sent me a transcript of it, and it's just nonsense. It's just like went blank long day yesterday. No, I mean like how blank blank part of blank blank like what the limit is might be different if I blank blank with. I know I got 203 thanks. I don't know how I got 203 thanks. Blank blank because Mike is Megan. Blank blank references terrible.
Okay, so
because Mike is Megan references terrible.
Okay, have you ever played the game where you just type one word?
Yeah.
And then you just keep hitting the autocomplete for like the next word. So like I just sent Nick a text. How's the meeting today at the house for the meeting? And we'll be there late at the same meeting. So I can't do that tomorrow, which is hilarious.
You have a lot of discussions about meetings, Jeff. That's what I've learning here. Your phone is very like aware. Like, I get it. It's another thing about meetings. God.
Oh man, I did tell you that I was going to be. Honestly, a lot of those things are just like somewhat related to the things we had just talked about. Anyways.
Yeah. No, but yeah. My point with that was just to say that the transcripts are probably the best option. Yes, but also they can be really funny.
Yeah, they are pretty funny. All right, Nick, what you got for me?
Okay. So I got a little one here for you. Is Jeff? We had a little wildfire here in California yesterday. It
really?
was thankfully it was dealt with really fast. But it was dealt with really fast because we used a like the world's largest fire suppression helicopter with a capacity to carry 3,000 gallons of fire retardant. But the reason I say this is that this was at my local trails where I bike. Like, this is like 5 minutes from my house on a bike. It was right here. Like, on the freeway that is, I don't know. I mean, if I'm taking the freeway to pass the spot on the freeway, because the freeway runs alongside the like wilderness park, where the fire was. It's probably about 3 minutes if I'm in my car from my house. It was basically freaking right here, Jeff. And it was thankfully taken care of really quickly. But it's really surreal seeing your own home like under places that you go all the time. I think that some of the trails that I ride often are going to be closed. It's just really surreal. And also, fire retardant is crazy and there's a lot of it in these planes.
Yeah, that is crazy. So did you get to see all that happen, or?
I did not. I didn't want to go gawk, so I didn't drive over to it and stuff. I'm going to send you a picture too while we're talking of the plane dropping a fire retardant. It's actually nuts. Kudos to Orange County Fire Authority. Apparently they were on it like super fast.
Good job, Orange County Fire Department.
I know, right? But no, I didn't go see it.
Oh wow, this I don't know what I was expecting to see, but a red dinosaur falling on this mountain was not what I was expecting to see at all.
Red dinosaur is exactly right. Have you seen fire retardant? That was like something I was going to ask.
I think so. There was I don't know if it was fire. Is it always red? Because if it's always red, then definitely not.
Yeah, it's basically always. Or at least I've only ever seen it as red, I think.
I have seen planes and helicopters and etc. drop water. There was a bunch of fires one time out in Colorado when we were out there. And
right.
Kind of saw, like on the drive-in, just absolutely crazy number of firefighting planes. But no, I've never seen red fall out of the sky. I had no idea it was normally red. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's super interesting, and the weird part is, I think that the fire retardant lasts like a year. So like that hillside will just now be red, like just covered red for like a year. Yeah, there's places that I go nearby that like you can still see fire retardant that I'm pretty sure is from this fire from early last year. So yeah,
that's crazy.
So I mainly wanted to have this because I just like am super impressed with how fast we can respond to this stuff and just equip things with 3,000 gallons of dropped fire retardant on stuff. And I didn't know if it's a thing that you even like not have like if it was something that you'd seen, because out here it's just normal. It's like, oh yeah, look at that hillside, it's freaking red. But yeah, anyways, like my whole thing is just that like I just wanted to share it because I'm like, dude, it's down the street from me. Wildfire season is basically here already, and the weird part with Southern California is, and just California, I guess, is it was 75, a high of 75 on Saturday, and then a high of 102 on Tuesday, just all at once, man.
Very nice. Yeah, it's super hot here. I'll tell you.
And then we get a fire the next day after that 102 spike. So there you
go. Nick, I want to talk to you about a little bit of. It's honestly kind of like a multi-topic topic. You'll note the commas in my topic. So we try to have a fairly evergreen podcast, meaning like most of the stuff that we talk about, aside from the occasional exception, is interesting regardless of when it actually happened, like the recording. Mm-hmm. But I don't think there's any way to like mask the fact that this has happened starting in the middle of a pandemic and still in the middle, or still in pandemic season. Like there's no way to mask the fact that like, this podcast currently is happening where COVID's still a thing that people care about. Try not to talk about it too much, but I just acknowledge the fact that is like, it's somewhat unavoidable, but I do want to say, so, my wife and I have both been vaccinated, and cases in Kansas are like crazy low, basically low all across the U.S. But there's counties in Kansas that have had no case reported for like 2 weeks and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
The hometown I live in, the county that I live in, there are some days where we only have like 0 to 3 people that test positive. Obviously it's not that way in every state. We're a really big country, and obviously it's not that way in every country. So I do feel very fortunate that we're in an area where it's much less of a concern, and we're starting to do more things because, we've talked like definitely excited to start to return to a little bit more normal of a world.
Agreed.
And so Katie and I, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary here recently. And one of the things that we did on our anniversary was, for the first time in a year and a half or however long it's been, we went to a movie theater, Nick.
Gasp.
I know.
Scary.
It's so crazy, but we braved the world. We went to a movie theater, watched In the Heights, which we will definitely talk about just briefly. But Nick, we walked in there and we maybe saw 2 other patrons at the entire movie theater.
So weird.
The ratio of staff to people going was I mean, it had to be like 6-1. And they were definitely lower staffed than typical, obviously, because they have nobody there right now.
Yeah.
I did not expect it to feel like that. Like, we walked in, we were the only people in the entire lobby. And it literally felt like, aside from the, handful of employees around, like we had walked into an abandoned movie theater that like just was, it was like an apocalyptic scene. Like it was just so weird because like literally last time we went, like it was completely packed. Like you constantly had to like buy tickets well in advance, especially if you wanted certain areas of the theater to sit in. There's different theaters in town, but one that's closest to us, like it is. Like it used to be very hard to get tickets on a weekend night, and we celebrated our anniversary on Friday night. And like I said,
you'd think that would be busy.
Maybe not busy because like, things are just now opening up. There's not a lot of movies coming out right now because, movie theaters are in varying states of closed or not across the country.
Right.
And so like it kind of would make sense, but like I kind of felt like, this would be something that people are starting to do a little bit more of, but no, apparently not. And in our theater, which we're talking about it was like a 6:00 showing of in the Heights, and we were literally the only people, and it was the weirdest thing ever on a Friday night being the only people in the entire theater.
For sure.
It was very weird.
Before you keep going, I didn't have that experience because of COVID or anything, but a long time ago, Jen used to live in a pretty small town in Pennsylvania, not as small as some of the like most small towns, but they had a like old time freaking movie theater that had been like renovated a few times. It was owned by like a family, including this like younger girl. And Jen and I went there for an after work date one time, and there was no one else there. So they had to like the person who owns it, like she sent everybody home except for her and like one other person, and she's like, okay, well we'll stay open for you guys. Do you guys want like a tour of the movie theater before we go? Because it's like a historic
super
thing.
Cool.
Super cool. They like since we were the only people that were there, they started it on top. Like as soon as we were done, they didn't have to do it at the exact moment. But they gave us a tour, and you're totally right. It's weird being in parts of a movie theater without people. It's too large of a space. Like it just feels like you're in like a ghost town, or it feels like you're in like some I don't know, like in an amusement park thing. And I can't imagine how that would feel if you also knew that it's because of a pandemic, and if you're wearing a mask, and if the employees are wearing a mask, it's like I would just feel awkward and uncomfortable. But it's really cool and kind of surreal seeing movie theaters completely just devoid of life.
It is very weird. It does make me worry for them a little bit because here in Kansas, I think they've been open for a few weeks or so. But like just seeing, and we live in the Midwest, so of all the places, like if there's going to be people willing to just go out and do whatever, like Kansas has decided that we're out going to do stuff now, but we have not decided to go back to movie theaters apparently, which I love movie theaters. I love going to see a movie. Are you a popcorn person, or do you get some sweets?
I'm both. I'm just like any self-discipline about my eating habits goes out the wayside when I'm in a movie theater. I'm like, yeah, give me that giant soda, popcorn. You got some red vines. Hook it up.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a popcorn person. Like I don't know if I've ever gone and watched a movie without getting popcorn. And when you're watching a movie and you have popcorn and it's a big bowl or whatever, and my wife and I are sharing things, like there's just no way that you're not going to make a little bit of a mess. But normally, obviously, if you make a giant mess, help clean it up. But like if there's a few popcorn, maybe I'm a terrible person for saying this. As I'm thinking about it, but like they have to go through and clean everything up, vacuum it or sweep it or whatever. Like it's not going to be a huge deal if they have some popcorn. But Nick, I will say, if you are the only people in the entire theater, the amount of judged I felt when the two people, which literally now has doubled the people in the theater, are coming in to clean up after everybody. And I don't know what state of affairs I left behind me, but I just Oh man, I got so
Like
anxious.
every crumb
please.
was like the worst. You're like, oh no,
please,
oh, no.
please let me have had the one time where like I just left everything completely immaculate, not a single kernel on the ground.
Yeah.
Because there's not going to be anybody else who's made whatever mess we made. I don't know. I felt so bad. I'm sorry. Can I just take the broom? I'll go clean anything I might have left behind.
I'll do this. I didn't mean to do that to you. I'll do it. Oh my god.
So. But yeah, so In the Heights, Lin-Manuel Miranda musical. Are you aware?
I am aware of what it is because it's the musical he produced before Hamilton, correct?
Yes, and now it is being adapted into a movie.
Yes,
and
so I don't know the premise of the movie or the film or the play or anything. Like, let me into your world, man.
Well, I don't really want to go too far into it because we are already trucking through the timeline of our podcast here.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, I think it was one of our very first episodes. We talked about how much I love Lin-Manuel Miranda and the work that he does. And I had vaguely known of In the Heights before, but we live in Wichita here, so ain't nobody gonna bring something like that to our area. But this was just reinforcement that. One, he is a fabulous creator of content and whatever the right words are to say when you do stuff in theater. But just time and time again, he the stuff that he does, he is such a good person too. He's a very conscious person with his playwriting, right? It's very intentional, and he has an agenda. I mean, he wants it to be entertaining, but it's not entertaining for entertaining's sake either. But no,
I agree. He's trying to send a message, or not send a message, but to have a message, right?
And he wants to influence culture by the things that he creates. And if you know his story, he's worked very hard for a very long time to be able to do that, and seems like a lovely person. And I'm so glad to see him get success because I do think the things that he believes in are things that we ought to care about. It's very cool. He is such a great person. And again, like I said back then, I want him to be able to make just keep making things, Lynn, please. Don't ever retire. Just keep making things. It's good stuff.
Very much agree. Very much agree.
So if it is safe wherever you're at, or at some time in the near future, and you want to get a little bit back to normal someday, anybody listening, definitely, there's not a whole lot of other choices right now.
Is the film still a musical?
The film is still a musical. I'm not super up to date, or I'm not super knowledgeable exactly what all counts as musical versus film, but it's definitely what I would call a musical. It's singing the entire way through. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, that basically is what I would assume in musical. I basically think if people are spontaneously singing, that it's a musical.
Yeah, it's not a musical in the sense that Hamilton was a pure musical, just a recording of the actual thing. It is a movie, but it is a movie musical. There's very little talking. The talking to music ratio is definitely well in favor of
honestly,
the songs.
Even if a film was 20% song, it's that's 20% more than most movies, right? So
That's fair.
No, but I get you. I get your meaning.
Nice to get a little bit more normal, even if it was extremely abnormal experience going to a theater.
Yeah.
Just a little empty. All right, Nick.
Okay. My last topic is one that I have been struggling to put together as a topic, but I still want to talk about with you. And the reason is that we have talked about a couple of all-time great athletes on this show. Mm-hmm. I have really enjoyed those. I think you have too, right? I don't want to overdo that, and I've tried not to overdo that, but I think just diving in super hard on one all-time great athlete is very interesting. So, Jeff, how much WNBA have you watched in your life?
Oh gosh, I can count on the number of fingers on my knee the number of WNBA games I've watched. That's not entirely true, but I mean, it's got to be. I've watched more college women's basketball than WNBA, almost for sure.
Also, 100%. Yes, same. I've watched a couple of different UConn women's Final Four runs. And,
it was all UConn stuff, just because it was so ridiculous that they won like whatever it was 95 times in a row or whatever.
Yep. And I'm a huge UConn fan, as I think you know.
Oh, that's right. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot that.
Yeah. For our listeners, I used to go to a UConn basketball camp in the summer, and I loved UConn. And also, I met Gino Auriemma, super like. Larger than life guy. I met him like, the way that everybody at a camp, or like, 30 kids at a camp who got to play freaking horse with him before, he spoke to us did. But more importantly, what I wanted to do was do a super deep dive into Diana Taurasi. Because Diana Taurasi is sometimes called the GOAT, and like as somebody who very, very, very occasionally will watch like the last game of a championship. And I say that, I think I did in 2017 or something like that. And then I didn't watch any of the bubble from them. I don't watch enough sports in general, and I sometimes just tune into a sport for championship games if I think they're supposed to be good. I do that with football. I do that with baseball. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I tell myself that it's okay when I do that with WNBA. I should probably just pay more attention to it because it's always fun when I do watch.
Yeah.
I've watched Diana Taurasi before. I watched her when she was in UConn when I was young, and I watched her at some of the Olympic games that she's played, because the USA women's basketball team, A+. But I didn't know how to do this, and as I did more research, I'm not even sure if Diana Taurasi is really like the GOAT. And there's really good writers that I already like for the NBA that have talked about this, including talking about names that I didn't even know. Like a woman named Tamika Catchings, who is a super badass, who was just inducted in the WNBA Hall of Fame, and she leads the all-time leader in steals for the WNBA by like 50%. I don't remember the exact number right now. It's like she has like 1,500 and the next person has like 1,000, which I thought was just like comical how ridiculous that is. Yeah. But see, usually when we talk about this stuff, we can point to, Gretzky had 3,000 goals total, and the next person or points total, and the next person has like 2,000, and it's just comical, and you can go down this like long list. But the WNBA is really interesting in that there are a lot of women who have multiple years of MVPs, and there's a lot of women who have like a lot of staying power. Diana Taurasi won like 6 straight scoring titles. And there's other women who have like MVPs like 10 years apart, which would never happen in the NBA.
That is crazy. Yeah.
Right. Like, would that happen in any other sport? Maybe baseball or something, right? But like, I've never, not since like the 70s in the NBA has something like that happened. I was trying to think of a contemporary example for this and from basketball because, oh God, who was it?
Aaron Rodgers might have done it in the NFL, I feel like.
Okay.
Maybe even Peyton Manning. I don't know when or how many he won.
Gotcha.
But it's exceedingly rare.
Yeah, exactly. Lauren Jackson
I found it. Only 9 years apart for Rodgers. So
there you go. So my example was actually 8 years apart. So excuse me for being off. But Lauren Jackson won an MVP in 2003 and then in 2010. And I was thinking about who are our MVP candidates in the NBA in 2003 versus 2010, and the 2010 candidates weren't even in the NBA in 2003. So like it's like a different world
for sure. Yeah.
And you have a lot of women whose careers are very interesting to me because so the WNBA plays a lot overseas, or not plays a lot of WNBA players who are really good translate that to playing overseas. So like when you look at Diana Taurasi's accomplishments, you see like, okay, she's been an MVP, she's a 2-time Finals MVP. She has this record for what is it? Single elimination games, in games that are like head to head, both teams are on elimination. She started her career out 13-0, which is kind of gross. Like that's a gross number.
Wow, man, how confident would you get after that? Like I never have played sports professionally. This is just an announcement to you, Nick, and to the podcast.
Oh, really?
But like, yeah, no, I haven't done that. If I did that once, I would feel super cool. Maybe twice, I'd feel like, wow, like
you can't beat me in a game 7, bro. You can't do it. I'm 2-0.
Where do I find the application for GOAT status? Because like we're well on our way. Oh man, and I mean, I do want to interrupt because I don't know if this is going to be a thing we're going to talk about, but it is like I'm looking through on Wikipedia the WNBA top 15 players of all time, and it is criminal how few people on this list I know. I know Lisa Leslie, and I know Cheryl Swoops, and maybe I had heard of Tarazi before you talked about it, and like that's confirmation bias, but like Cheryl Swoops and Lisa Leslie would have definitely been the two potentially only names I would have been able to pull out.
And part of that is that they were around in the formative years and were huge stars at the formative years, right? So they're around when people are first getting exposed to it, and that's for us. It's like when we were young, right?
Yeah.
But I agree, right? That's another thing is I'd heard of Elena Del Don. She's a 2-time MVP. Her advanced stats are gross. So they use a similar advanced stat or a similar set of advanced stats. You can use advanced stats for the WNBA that are from the that were originally developed for the NBA or whatever. And there's one that's really popular that I don't like because I don't like all-encompassing stats. The stats that are trying to get a single metric as a point of impact. But there's one that's really, really popular called win shares or win shares per 48 minutes. 48 minutes is the length of a basketball game for people who don't care at home. But for example, win shares per 48, Michael Jordan has the most win shares per 48 in the NBA for a career at 0.25. So basically he's contributing 25% of a win every time he plays 48 minutes, okay? At his absolute peak, he was at 0.33 win shares per 48. I think that's the highest single season. And that's pretty much as high as you'll ever see in the NBA. A lot of these women's MVP seasons in terms of win shares per 48 are like 0.44. And Elena Del Don's at 0.42 or 0.41 in two of these. And it's like, but she's not considered GOAT necessarily because she's young and but I also had never really given her, like I heard the name, I think when she was first recruited, she was a name that was talked about on the NBA subreddit. And so like I saw some stuff from her, but like, didn't really know her, and then she's like, winning championships while putting up insane advanced stats. This is exactly my point. I'm not qualified to tell you that even though I'm looking up this stuff about Diana Taurasi, and it's like, okay, she's just an absolute killer in the postseason. Her stats get better in the postseason. She wins all of these single elimination games because the WNBA has more single elimination games. They have the first two rounds are it's changed around a little bit, but there are times where the first round is just a single elimination. It's just best of one. And she started her career 13-0 in those, which is gross. That is an insane number. She goes overseas and she plays overseas and she helps win a ton of EuroLeague titles while she's still tired from playing in the Olympics and in the WNBA, and then wins EuroLeague MVPs and EuroLeague Finals MVPs and whatever, and then comes home and wins 2 Finals MVPs here. So I can tell you all this stuff about how she's a total badass. Her biggest claim to fame on this is her scoring. Like she's basically like, you can't really argue with like, she's the best scorer of the WNBA. Total points in WNBA history. She's at 9,000. The next highest person is at 7,500. So like, it's a pretty significant gap.
A little.
Yeah. But like, as I researched this is exactly what I was getting at. Is I kept watching more and more highlight clips and game highlights of just more and more insanely impressive women across this whole spectrum, because there's a lot of different. I think that because the game is kind of younger there, and because we the common discourse around it, especially when I was growing up, was like, oh, they're very fundamental. But no, these girls are badasses. Like she's got like a she's not really exactly like anyone else, but she's very much like a pull up dribbles in your face kind of player, or pull up jumpers in your face kind of player. And it's not just a fundamental player who goes to the backboard or some crap like that. You watch her and you get like flashes of Kobe pulling up off the dribble, or you get flashes of James Harden working with somebody on their hip and just abusing them and putting them in a cage. And it's the same thing with a lot of these other girls. Elena Del Don is like, I feel bad watching these women try to guard Elena Del Don because she's just like tall, has a stupid great jumper, and gets the rim at will. And it's like, okay, well, what do you do with that? And it's down the board with all their their MVPs. I didn't know enough about any of these women, and I don't have any specific thing that like tells me, oh, let me tell you the list of things that make Diana Taurasi like the GOAT. Because I don't know if there is a list, or I'm not qualified enough to think about it. But dude, some of the women in this game are freaking badasses. Is my biggest takeaway and point. And I need to watch more WNBA. That's my resolution to myself, is as the NBA playoffs die down, because I cannot even keep up with watching the NBA playoffs, as you know. I'm gonna switch over to putting that time into the WNBA, because it is it's going on right now, and they're gonna take a break for the Olympics. But they are going to pick up back up again. And it's nice for me as an NBA fan, because they're kind of going to be at their most fun. Their playoffs are going to be right before the NBA comes back. So it's like, I'll just have no time off. Yeah.
I think we all should watch more of women's sports in general, and WNBA included. Is the WNBA, I mean, this is maybe a super dumb question, is it owned by the NBA also? Or like?
Yeah, it is. Or at least it's like under the same umbrella. Yeah.
Because I think I remember back forever ago, I think it was maybe Donovan Mitchell that like kind of stood up for the WNBA. Was that him? Do you remember any of that?
Yeah, a lot of or like in what capacity?
That they are underpaid and underappreciated for what they do.
I think so. There's a lot of support between both leagues. Chris Paul speaks out about it a lot. I think Dwayne Wade does too. Yeah,
because the highest earner, I was just Googling some things because I thought I remember hearing about that, so I thought I would look up some actual numbers. Yeah, that the high, like the super max is like 220K or something like that for WNBA, and the minimum salary is dang near $1 million for NBA. Like that's just like that is a huge disparity, and I understand like they're not necessarily like it is a more viewed sport, obviously, and so that's why it happens. But I think that like that inequality is a bit too rich for my blood.
I completely agree. And so like the Diana Taurasi thing, one of the interesting stories and controversies in her career is that, so I told you a million times that she's played a bunch overseas, right? Well, so one year she was hurt, and she decided to sit out the WNBA season to be prepared to play for the EuroLeague season, because she gets paid more by the EuroLeague. And like, what is that? We have like the biggest basketball market in the world in America.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah,
like we have the biggest infrastructure in terms of men's basketball, and like the biggest star in the WNBA can't get. Like it's like getting paid more like playing in an off season overseas.
Can you imagine if Jordan was like you know what, I just need to take it easy this year. I'm gonna go get a bigger salary to go play EuroLeague ball. Like what in the world?
Right, completely. And I'd like to think that there's an element of this that is like most leagues are smaller when they start, and they can expand, and they can sometimes expand exponentially. And I would like to think that there hopefully is a trajectory like that for the WNBA, but it doesn't happen if we all have like let old school biases and old school small like not discriminate, but like old school biases like color our desire to watch a sport. Because like when you watch these highlights of these girls, you're not watching high school kids who are whatever. Like, okay, they're not as tall, whatever. Who cares?
Right, it's still high level basketball.
Right. When Diana Taurasi sticks a behind the back step back on from 28 feet, it doesn't. It's the same thing as when Steph does it. It's the same thing. It's still sick.
Exactly.
It's still sick.
Oh gosh.
Well, Nick, I hope that makes clear why I haven't talked about this. I wanted to just do this on Taurasi because I've always liked Diana Taurasi. She's a badass. She's very like she seems like a really cool person. She has done she's been on some of the podcasts that I listen to, some of the basketball podcasts that I listen to, and I think she's really smart and well spoken, and and then also she's had staying power. She's been in the league for forever. Gino, one of the funniest quotes I ever heard was someone asking Gino Auriemma how the team was I think it was like their second season in a row where they hadn't lost a game, and someone asked Gino what his secret was, and he said, we have Taurasi and you don't. And that's like This is just a great. This is
my
funny.
gosh, I do love that. I do love that.
Yeah. So I wanted to just do stuff on Tarazi, and I couldn't even find enough stuff to be like, why would I talk about that if so Diana Taurasi, for example, has the 4th highest points per game of all time. So how do I not talk about Elena Del Don, who is currently at a higher point per game for her career, is the last time she was healthy, won the WNBA Finals MVP on the back of, and carried the hell out of her team, just because I like Taurasi, I do, and I have an affinity towards her just because she's a UConn girl, and she was a UConn girl when I was there, and I mean, so are a million of these people. Yeah. But UConn alums are killing it in the WNBA. But,
that's so surprising. I wonder why.
But yeah, I don't really have a point to any of this, except to say that I'm going to resolve to watch the WNBA this year, even though I never have time to watch anything. Or not never have time. I never am good about making time to watch things. And some of these girls are freaking badasses, man.
Hey, I'm if you haven't gotten it already, I'm definitely all in support of promoting women's sports. This is awesome. This was when you put GOAT, my mind immediately went to who are we going to be talking about from the NBA?
Baseball today? Yeah, fair.
For sure. Fair. No, but this is a pleasant surprise. I appreciate you taking the time to do a little bit of research and talk about it. And yeah, I think completely unrelated. I want to watch more soccer too. I've really, really enjoyed watching more soccer. But I think WNBA might have to be you need to text me when things are happening. Also, watching these games are kind of hard depending on where you live. But
that's the other thing. It's that's what the other thing is that they're criminally underplayed. They're just not there's just not enough broadcasting of their games, which is kind of BS. So.
All right, Nick, we should probably wrap this one up. I don't think we mentioned it. We are recording this at an absurdly weird time. We need to go record our Patreon-only podcast, and then I need to turn around and edit that Patreon-only podcast, and I'll just publish it. It's fine. Because, Nick, if there's ever going to be a thing that is as close to a live broadcast that we're ever going to do, it is going to be this Patreon podcast, because I'll probably hold on to this one until Monday, but that Patreon podcast is probably going to talk about NBA playoff stuff, so there's no reason to sit on stale NBA news. Need to get that out ASAP, and I'm going to edit it tonight because this is the only night I'm going to be in front of a computer. So it's called The Year We Started Another Podcast. If you want to check that out, you can go to Patreon/TiWasap or Patreon.com/TiWasap.
Yep, and you can also check us out on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, but and not Snapchat.
Oh, not
Snapchat.
Okay,
don't go there. You can find all of that at TiWasap.com.
Nicholas, thank you for potting with me.
You're welcome. This has been The Year We Started the Podcast. Thank you for listening.